Welcome back, everyone, to Old Man Media. I'm your host, Will Ragg.
And I'm Paul Buchanan.
Also a host.
In case you didn't know. This week we're visiting the Backrooms.
Yeah, about a month or two.
Figuratively and literally. I kind of feel like, so after watching that film, I realise I've kind of like gone for a Backrooms.
Yeah, the colour of your walls is...
on the yellow bits on my walls.
It's a bit darker, to be fair.
No, my one's cool as fuck. It's not piss. It's 70s yellow. It's quiche, but in a cool way.
Quiche. You say it was quiche?
Quiche.
So Backrooms, directed by Kane Parsons, his debut feature film.
He's 20 years old, if you didn't know.
I thought he was 21.
20 years old.
20?
Do you know Kane Parsons is 20 years old? 20 years old. He's 20 years old.
I get the feeling you've heard that a few times.
It's the going meme on the internet. It's like the new Tame Impala is just one band, one guy.
This is Lorelei as one guy.
Yeah. I'm surprised that that wasn't a thing with Cameron Winter. He's only 21 years old.
Is Cameron Winter only 21?
Yeah.
Is he really?
Well, he was back in and he's probably 22 now.
Oh, wow.
He's even 23. Who knows?
I actually had no idea.
But like when he was getting his, big break.
Wow. That's very impressive. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I guess it's a bit of a meme now, but to be 20 years old and do something like that is very impressive. Because, I read a review that, we don't know whether he did that as a result of his own directorial style, it looks like that, or because he deferred to other people, more, mature, more experienced. Either way, it's an incredibly mature.
Well, yeah, I saw your review for it, and I was like, wow. I thought you'd think higher of this film, but...
No, I like
how it looks. Is it because he's 20 years old?
I like how it looks, and I think it looks really good.
But he's definitely deferred it to other people, like... I don't know, like, he's definitely being babysat the entire time, he's 20 years old.
No, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing that he's done that. I'm saying that it shows maturity in that he's... Nice. He knows that he's inexperienced and he has these very experienced people around him, and then to go to them like, okay, what should I do? What would you do here? I think that shows.
Yeah. Well, I think so from interviews I've seen, he seems quite self-aware.
Yeah,
he knows his style, his roots. But yeah, what I find very interesting about it is that it's all born of internet culture.
Yeah,
and he started off learning Blender and basically adapted a creepypasta, because the Backrooms started out as a 4chan thread where someone posted like an initial post of like some weird kind of image of like has this faint nostalgic childlike memory, but something's a bit off, like something's been misremembered, and it's just like this eerily like liminal space picture, and then basically this whole board like started filling up with like people posting their own pictures that they found or taken or who knows, and then eventually it just became this big community, and they got obsessed with this aesthetic of like weird liminal spaces where it almost like makes you feel like a weird kind of empty nostalgia,
Yeah.
And and then Kane Parsons has taken that concept. He had a web series at first. The web series I haven't watched, but I've watched YouTube videos discussing...
I've seen the short film.
Short film?
Yeah, there was an 8-minute YouTube video, which is like on the one on Letterboxd. I watched that. I like the found footage bits a lot, and that is just a found footage bit.
Well, that's Kane Parsons, if anything. If there's anything in the movie that he probably did himself, that's probably that, right?
But I still just don't find it. I think it's just trying to be scary too much, and I just don't think it's scary.
I personally feel the opposite. I feel like it's using the framework of a horror movie to discuss something deeper than it's intended. And I sort of, like, where I kind of draw a parallel is Heretic. Did you watch that movie of Hugh Grant?
No.
Hugh Grant? Yeah.
Yeah, Hugh Grant.
Heretic.
Yeah.
So basically I found that movie, it starts off, these Mormon kids knock on the door of this guy, the guy welcomes them in, and then they're like talking, having food and tea, and then I think they like play a game or something. But anyway, it gets very overtly like philosophical. They start discussing religion, and then Hugh Grant sort of discusses how like all religions are the same thing, but with a different guise, a different kind of like terminology, and then he discusses like songs, like for instance the Hollies. What's the one that's Creep kind of was heavily inspired by, and then Lana Del Rey did a Air That I Breathe. So the Air That I Breathe by the Hollies, same chord progression and similar melody to Creep. Lana Del Rey did a song that was similar to that, and Radiohead started suing them, and then I think she got off the hook because the lawyer or whatever used the example of the Hollies, and they're saying, well, this was inspired by that and that was inspired by that. Anyway, kind of goes into this great sort of existential question of like, is anything really original? And then halfway through, it just turns into a normal horror movie, and then it just kind of like completely abandons the point it was making. Whereas I feel like the Backrooms starts off the other way, where you kind of like don't know what's going on. You're dropped into the world, things are getting weirder, and then around the halfway or 3/4 mark, like it starts hitting like on the head with what it's kind of, you know, trying to convey in its message. And I thought it was like just had me thinking for days about a lot of things, you know. I think because it's got like this modern internet culture context, it seems very new and novel and forward thinking in some ways about the devolution of us as a species, of the internet. You know, the internet is such a huge thing. None of us really go through our day-to-day lives without even using it. Some of us, it's the first thing we do in the morning is check our phones. And you just think, like, if this thing that we're almost becoming codependent with is actually slowly becoming more and more, like, mutated and sinister, or, you know, just eerie, like, what's the future look like for the human race? Like, that's the level of thinking that this film had elicited from me. Whereas the horror wore off around halfway for me. I was like, at first, you know, you're going through these weird passages and you're like, oh, you hear a sound and the doorknob. And yeah, I do. You made a joke because I had the Backrooms on my screen. I had like a YouTube video discussing some themes in it when he came into my room today. And he said, like, it looks like Gary's Mod. And I actually thought, during this film, I used to play these Gmod, Gary's Mod horror maps. They were basically, because they used like very minimal, they used like the base game of like Half-Life and stuff, all of those resources, and then sometimes they'd have like literal just a JPEG, like a flat 2D JPEG that would like fly out of a wall and jump scare you. And they were like so shitty.
Yeah,
I used to just like forego the element of I used to submerge myself into the like whatever the horror map was supposed to be, and just like give it the benefit of a doubt, because it would, you know, if you can put yourself into that level and just have a good time, then it, you know, I feel like you can have a lot of fun with it, in terms of realizing that it's using limited resources. And I guess the Backrooms also kind of draws from that, you know, figuratively and literally. You know, it's the whole concept is that it's something that's reusing resources from real life to rebuild and, you know, regurgitate things back at you until they're no longer recognizable. And, you know, there's almost, I feel like that it does that on multiple levels, maybe even with the storytelling. And because, you know, on the surface, it seems like a normal A24 horror film, and I got that same like almost film camera kind of like quality to the, and color grading, and the actors, you know, it's got like pretty A-list actors, you know, in it. And yeah, but then it just subverts the narrative in ways that I find really like smart and interesting.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, like you said, you know, it starts to reveal far deeper things, you know, after the halfway mark. And I think at that point, certainly the bit where they're having a discussion with the therapist in the, you know, the room with the 3 weird things. And at that point, I was like, okay, I'm kind of starting to get this now. It reveals itself to be more existential than just like, look at how weird this room is. And at that point, I started getting on board a lot more. But just, it looks good. The acting's good. But there's just, for me, it would have been better just as a found footage film.
I do agree they sort of build a narrative around the found footage thing, which was the source of the web series. But I just think, how far can you push that cart down the road? You know,
Yeah,
at
I
some
mean,
point it
is
does need
quite
to
old.
introduce some narratives, and I felt like there was this like silly wackiness to what they did introduce that I really liked. Like, you know, like Clark. Is there a time like I was laughing like a lot? I mean, that's a common element in horror movies. Throw some comedy in there. When you laugh, you kind of put your guard down, which allows for more fear, and it kind of like gives yourself up to the, you know, sort of roller coaster ride of emotions that, you know, you experience in a horror movie. But I don't know, it was just like a real wackiness to some of it. Like even just like what was it, the Pirate Clark's Ottoman Empire or whatever it was called.
Yeah, it's the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah, which is again is another kind of symbolism of the film, where the Ottoman Empire were one of the most rapidly expanding empires in history, who are largely sort of forgotten about and misremembered today. And I think that they haven't done that by accident, using a reference to the Ottoman Empire, and I think they're kind of referencing the Backrooms and certain parts of the internet. Like, if you think about the amount of architecture on the internet as well that we used when we were kids, like, I don't know, fucking MSN, like, I don't know, MySpace,
AOL.
all of these like old sort of extinct dinosaur social media, even like the Instagram we use today is not the same as we used to. And it's like, you know, the things that have remained have sort of remained but changed and maybe even been bought out, while the old kind of internet is like the Backrooms in a way. It's just like this weird sort of other dimension of like misremembered memories, and you know, there's like a sadness to a lot of the, you know, a lot of people have nostalgia for the early days of the internet, you know, old school RuneScape.
Yeah, I think nostalgia is a big part of it, and I think the film owes a lot to kind of 90s aesthetics. You know, that those sorts of office blocks were kind of largely like a 90s invention. And I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, we think about these old websites we used to go on. I mean, I went on a website recently called Eltonography, it's about Elton John. And it's really weird looking on it because it's like such a relic of like mid 2000s website design, where everything was like really glittery and you know,
GIFs and
GIFs everywhere. And it's just like, all these things still exist, and it's like they're still there, and they're maybe slightly decaying over time or whatever. And you know, you remember them, and they're not exactly how you remember them, and that memory is then eroding in your head as you remember it. And I don't know, it's weird to me for a 20-year-old to then, you know, use that 90s aesthetic as a nostalgia for a time he didn't live in. But I guess that's probably part of it, in that, you know, he's remembering something that he wasn't there for in this sort of way, and then using that as a building block to show like the erosion of our minds and our memory and things like that.
Yeah,
and I think it's really clever. I don't know, it just didn't work for me. You know, some of those kind of early scenes, that last scene as well, I wasn't.
The ending,
the ending, I wasn't really.
I was like kind of in suspense at the ending, so I was like, part of me had this uneasy. She kind of like gets taken by these guys, and then she's suddenly in the real world, or, you know, out of the Backrooms, it seems, and she's with this company, and she's getting interviewed by a scientist who you see a few times in the film, but you don't really know his connection. Like, there's bits where he's watching the CCTV of the Backrooms, and you're like, oh, weirdly enough, that guy, I was like, I recognise that guy.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know where from, and in an eerie, weird way. And yeah, he's in this film Creep, which again is a kind of indie horror, you know, masterpiece.
Mark Duplass.
And yeah, he plays this weird guy who the whole film you're trying to figure out if he's like a creep or not, basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, it kind of very sets you that feeling of unease. So almost that casting is like genius to me, because every time he pops up, you're like, I don't know if I trust him. I recognize him. I don't know where from, because he's got one of those faces. Maybe some people knew it was from Creep, but I was like, I have no idea. I had to look up.
Yeah, I'd seen Creep recently. I've seen it.
But yeah, then you're like, she's kind of been rescued, so to speak, and then you're like, whoa, what's going on? And then for me, I was like, is she still in the backrooms? Is it like, is this more hallucinations? Is this getting like kind of like, and then and then at some point she just it just the ending kind of just like transitions and she's back in the backrooms. It's like she's chosen to stay in the backrooms and she's just like fucked up face, misremembered. She's like a what they call it, like an entity of herself. And I did look it up, and apparently there is there's like a lot of lore in this world from the web series as well, and that this guy, the creep guy, his character in the film works for this company. I think Async they're called. And
is he supposed to be the guy at the beginning?
Which guy?
So there's a guy at the beginning. There's a whole section at the beginning of found footage stuff, and there's a guy talking. Obviously, you never see his face. Is Mark Duplass supposed to be that guy?
I don't think that was the ID that was pulled out of that bag. I think that's just a random guy. But yeah, the whole world from the web series and stuff, and the web series is out of chronological order. This is lore that has been put in there, but not. It's like Easter eggs almost. Like, but there's like Wikipedia articles. This whole thing of like, and anyway, yeah, it's supposed to be this company that builds MRI machines, and then they've like something went wrong, and they've ended up like with I don't know the full story, but there's like deep and rich lore. There's a wiki, there's a huge fandom from the 4chan and just the web series and stuff. So I think that's one of its strengths is the film comes in this well-established world that I didn't even need to know. Like I'm saying, my version of the ending was that she was still in the backrooms, and then I'm finding out that maybe she'd gotten out and then she got put back in. Who knows? But yeah, there is just a lot to unpack, and I think the fact that there's that much attention to the world building is just like a great place for it to start off from. And I can see why this is caught on a lot with people. And I think when you see something for the first time, and then you're like, oh wait, there's this whole underbelly of stuff to explore. I can see why a lot of people are raving about the Backrooms and its whole. Because it's so unique and it's aesthetic and vibe, no other films are really doing it just like this. Like the Backrooms is a meme in itself. Not that that's something you should get a badge for, but the fact that I hadn't even seen or heard of the film, and I was seeing stuff on social media like I'm in the Backrooms, I was like, what the fuck is this little yellow? And then instantly that built a rapport with me. That it's fucking guerrilla marketing in this day and age, really, isn't it? But,
yeah, no, it's good. I think it's interesting because I had forgotten a bit about it being because of a company that was making MRI machines. But if you think about it, like MRI machines are something that's used to. It's not like an X-ray, but it's like to see inside your body, isn't it?
It's magnets to map out your neural pathways.
Yeah, it's in your head, isn't it? Yeah. But then that's also
MRI in your head, brain, brain
no,
machine thing.
I've been watching The Pit, and they do mention it sometimes. I've forgotten which one it was, but yeah, but like I mean that's what it's about, isn't it? It's also about like the erosion of our memories and things like that, and the slow decay of.
You can say that's what it's about, but like that's what you perceive it to be about. I think it's the strength of the Backrooms is that it's not too heavy-handed with any of the meaning. And I watched a thing with Kane Parsons because I thought it was about AI. A lot of the stuff in this film looks like DALL-E, which is like an old AI image generator that was about before ChatGPT sort of got big. I remember in 2021 maybe, me and my friends would just type stupid shit into it and be like, I don't know, like Mario downhill skiing, and then we'd get a picture of like a blurry fucking warped little Mario. Some of the images that came out were like actually cursed. Like I've still got one in my Twitter inbox that I sent to a meme page. It was like Danny DeVito eating a cheeseburger, and he's just like, you can tell it's Danny DeVito, but then there's like so much fucked up warp shit. It's like you're looking at Danny DeVito while you're on acid kind of thing. And yeah, obviously they've ironed out a lot of the hallucinations now to the point where AI has this horribly perfect gleam to it. But yeah, I thought this film was referencing that era of AI, and also referencing the fact that there's a theory that AI is going to slowly devolve as it stops taking influence and machine learning from human-built things and starts just learning off of its own images, because it's been around so long on the internet that a lot of the source images are AI, and then by the time it's doing that, it's eating itself and getting further away from human sort of behavior. So I thought the film was about that. But then I was listening to an interview of Kane Parsons, and he was like, "Yeah, some people are saying it's AI." I didn't mean that at all. Like, but he's like, "It's a cool read on the film," But I like there's an element of removing himself from putting too much meaning into it, because it almost holds more meaning if you put your own thoughts and feelings on it. But yeah, I also thought like maybe it was about trauma. The thing with these images, the liminal space stuff, is that they kind of have this weird link with like childhood trauma. A lot of people that are kind of like, I don't know, because I think it's like it has this element of the way you see the world when you're a kid. Do you know what I mean? Like,
well, I mean, obviously the therapist has flashbacks to her childhood in it.
I don't think that's accidental. And then Clark's trying to get over a trauma of his divorce as well. So I think the two stories both are...
But they're both also about memory as well, how you're remembering an incident that happened, and maybe the incident isn't happened exactly as you remembered it happening. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of over horror films being about trauma. I feel like every horror film for the past 10 years has been about trauma.
Yeah.
Starting with Hereditary, didn't like that. Every horror film for I don't know. But also another thing I wanted to bring up was the YouTube director thing. I remember in the 90s, I mean, going back to the 90s, there was a big indie director boom because there were affordable cameras that you could buy. And so we got people like Tarantino, like PTA, because they could make films cheaper.
I mean,
because there was
not to counteract your story, but Quentin Tarantino's first film was like quite high budget, wasn't it? Or high enough, but like Reservoir Dogs is made with a fairly decent camera. I wouldn't say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it was made with a camcorder.
Or you just mean he was training?
Yeah, there was lots of.
I mean, I don't know enough about Tarantino's like backstory. I know he wrote True Romance, which probably got him some cred to go and make his own film.
Yeah, there was a certain amount of like he had industry ins and things like that. I mean, he got Tim Roth in, which I think was like a fairly established star at the time. So it's not exactly like he had a low budget, but PTA made the Dirk Diggler story. Which have you watched that?
No.
That's
I know it's Boogie Nights.
Yeah, it's the kind of backstory for Dirk Diggler, Mark Wahlberg's character in Boogie Nights, and that is literally shot on a camcorder. And I mean, there's a story of him just like, I had to chase a director and throw it into the back of his car so that he'd watch the film. Anyway, but then in the 2000s we get YouTube, and people are slowly being kind of priced out of indie filmmaking. And YouTube sort of promised us a way in which more young directors could rise up through the ranks and get their film seen, and it didn't really happen. We haven't really gotten any directors from YouTube until like this year when we had 2, which is quite impressive. And both of those both horror films, made on fairly low budgets, I think that's a good thing to see. I want to see more young directors. I think Curry Barker as well as the other one. Who I didn't really like his film, but I think he's a good filmmaker. Same as Kane Parsons. But
what film did he do?
Obsession.
Oh right, you've seen Obsession, right?
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I thought it was scary. I thought it was much scarier than.
Hear me out. All the criticism that you give for Backrooms about, or like even like the angle you come in with, like the horror movie thing. I see Obsession. I'm like, fuck. I swear, Together was last year, and that was the exact same thing. I haven't watched Obsession, but Together's about this codependent relationship, and they find this thing. And
no, Obsession is not about a codependent relationship. It's more about incel stuff.
Oh right. Okay. I do need to give it a watch, but out of the 2 films, Backrooms and Obsession, Backrooms seems unique and interesting and like a little bit less just cookie cutter horror movie to me. Whereas Obsession looks like the way that it's marketed just looks like a million other horror movies.
I would say that film scared me more than any other horror film I've seen in the past 5 to 10 years. I just didn't like the writing in it. And I think the writing really let it down, and the acting. But yeah, I definitely give it a watch. It's definitely worth a watch because I think I see where you're coming from, and Together was a sort of, it was a play on like kind of body horror or whatever, and Obsession is also sort of body horror in places, but I think it has more interesting ideas about men in current society and their relationship to women that they see around them, and friend zoning, things like that. But yeah, I mean, because if you think about the modern director landscape, all of our really great directors are getting pretty old now. Scorsese, PTA, Clint Eastwood. Who else do we have really coming up? Ari Aster, I don't really think is that good. Robert Eggers is okay sometimes. I didn't.
Yeah, he gets a little bit too traditionalist with a lot of the sort of set design and costumes and historical accuracy, which sometimes works, but then sometimes you're like, this is like almost just killing it. Like, you do need to have a little bit of pizzazz sometimes.
Yeah, with The Witch, I think it really works because he had a good story there, and then also I think the real minutiae, getting the real minutiae of the historical accuracy, I think helps that story. Does it help things like Nosferatu as much?
I like Nosferatu quite a bit, actually. But yeah, no, they're trying to think of young directors off the top of my head, but it is difficult to think.
I mean, Josh Safdie's not old.
No, the Safdie brothers are still relatively young and up and
I see they're probably here now. Yeah.
I think even to be successful in like your 20s and 30s as a director, you still got room for your 40s, 50s, and 60s to make some of your greatest stuff. Like Scorsese. Scorsese was making his hits when he was like 30, I want to say.
Well, I mean, he's made hits throughout his life, though.
But
really,
the thing is, I can point to all the indie directors kind of an indie film now has become its own aesthetic. Maybe because they have to lean into the fact that it's DIY or it's indie. But I don't know. I just think that, like, who's going to be your next Spielberg? Like, no one wants to do it in like a traditionalist sense, or no one that I've spotted so far. There's
not really a lot of space for a new Spielberg, though. That's the thing, was like that Spielberg got all of this time and money to like sort through all of his obsessions and things that he really cared about, like Aliens and his relationship to his mother and things like that. But and do it in this really high budget way. And they just aren't taking risks on people like they were in the 70s.
Well, yeah, I think you can say that across all industries now. Is it's flipped to a point where it's so accessible that it's probably, you need to probably get to a certain amount of fame or success on your own, or a company is willing to just hand you money to make a film. And I think there is just less money going about in general due to the fact that film and other stuff that, other creative things don't bring in as much money as they used to. Like, streaming's killed a lot of the income of stuff. And yeah, it doesn't, I feel like you have to have some sort of credit and basis on your own terms, like a web series like Kane Parsons, before you can really...
Yeah, building up credit, I think, is a really good way to go. I mean, we talked about This Is Lorelei last week, and he does it, in creating all of those EPs.
Yeah, he did nothing. Well, he got no attention or success for so long until eventually he did, and that seems to be a more and more common success story.
But this is also a thing.
In terms of craft.
That's then almost pricing out working class people from doing it. Because, I mean, how long can they just work away at something that's not earning them money? To eventually get some big break, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, this is true in terms of if you want a family and stuff, but I think even if you're working class, if you have a minimum wage job and I mean, don't get me wrong, you struggle a lot. If you've got a minimum wage job and you've got rent, I don't know, in like a moderately low income place, like, like not living in London or something, maybe you could put aside a few £100 a month, and then eventually you could put that towards equipment and stuff, and it would be a long and slow grind. It's possible. It's fucking, and that's if you've got no family. Yeah, if your heart is basically set on making movies or art or whatever until you die, and that's your life goal. But no, I do agree. It is a class thing, but then you think about it was probably way worse back in the day. Like how you're working class and you can't even afford a camera.
Actually. If you think about, I mean, I saw an interview with Nish Kumar. He talked about the Beatles, and he talks about how there are these 4 working class boys from Liverpool, and the government paid for them to go to art college so they could fuck around for a bit, and then they had that behind them, and then managed to go and do all of these gigs, and because of all of that money that the government has put into them as just kids who want to go to uni.
You still get that nowadays with universities.
Yeah, but
like, I got to go to university and fuck around for 3 years.
Yeah,
so did you. But we've all been afforded that right. It's just neither of us went to Hamburg and ground out what was it, seven shows a week?
Yeah,
every night for years. And so I do think the Beatles they still very much worked very hard despite what their circumstances were. Not that I want to discredit and put down anyone who's blaming the system for their troubles, but I do think there is always a way of grinding out to do whatever your goal is in life. Whether that be, it depends what the goal is. Obviously, you can't be like, I want to be famous and I want millions of people to love my music. But if your goal is to make an album, if you want to make that album, make that come into the world, it's so possible. You just have to dedicate a lot of time and money, which I do understand is not what people's life goals are, and it's not very easy or fun. And like you say, anyone even listening to it is never guaranteed. So yeah, it's a toughie. But anyway, I want to get back onto the topic of Backrooms, unless you got anything more to say.
Well, no, I mean, I was more going to say that, I don't know, I think it behooves the government to pay people to do art and things like that, because you think about the Beatles and how much money they bring into to England every year still, and they've not been a thing for. Well,
I'm pretty sure you could lose a lot of money. I think there's probably a lot of people that went to art college and did fuck all, and all of those people.
But how many people do you reckon the Beatles? How many university tuitions every year that the Beatles in millions bring in? Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Stuart Lee has a thing where he talks about how as an unemployed artist or an unemployed actor or anything like that, you used to be able to go on the dole. Tony Blair changed that, and that's a big reason we don't have a lot of working class actors
go on the dole.
You can go on the dole, but not as an unemployed actor.
Yeah, you just have to pretend you're looking for work.
Yeah.
I just think that the times are unfortunately changing, and where's the money going to come from? The government has lost so much money because they've been doing that, and the government aren't getting money for the Beatles. It's the corporations and the companies and the record labels. Yes, there's a bit of tourism. Yes, there's stuff, but ultimately, I am becoming a little bit more realist nowadays, where I'm just seeing the state of the way most companies are being run. Even ones you think are doing very well have to cut a lot of costs, and no one's got the money. We're entering an economic downfall since I think we're approaching our Great Depression era in a way. But was it the 30s last century? We're approaching that. There's not going to be a lot of handouts on money, and unfortunately that's the reality that we're faced with. And I think even if there were to be a Labour government that would come in, that would just mean we'd get taxed more in order to pay for these things. I do believe in arts grants, and I do believe, but the first probably order of business would be to sort out the funds and business and industries and stuff in this country. One way or the other, I think there's a smart way of doing it. I'm not a politician. I don't know but there is a smart way of doing it, and it doesn't start with kicking out immigrants. It doesn't start with, I don't know, doing loads of shit that's bad for the environment. It probably just starts with a lot of realism, which is where I don't think we're ever going to get it, because no one wants to swallow that pill. No one wants a Labour person to come in and be like, right, we're all going to get taxed a lot. We're going to have to start building industries and start, and it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. I mean, that is what Keir Starmer said, but Keir Starmer's also supported some pretty terrible things. Yeah, I don't know. We live in a fucked age, and I don't know how we got onto this from the Backrooms. But yeah.
Anyway, one more point on
the
Backrooms.
Backrooms has spawned a lot of films I'm seeing pop up on my Instagram are getting funded that are based off creepypastas. Which the Backrooms was a creepypasta. I can't remember. There's I saw one where it was Siren Head, and it's some weird picture of a guy with sirens on his head, and I don't know all the deep lore of this stuff, but there is a vast architecture on the internet of creepypastas. So I went down the loophole when I was younger. I used to like love a little creepypasta, man. So I think it's an interesting sort of plethora of influence and, if anything, new and forward-moving and spontaneous influence. And the thing I find most interesting is a lot of these creepypastas weren't written for money. They were written out of pure some guy just being like there was one where it was about this like lost episode of SpongeBob, Squidward's suicide, and it's like, who you're only doing that for love of the game.
Yeah, I remember someone telling me about that, and I was like, oh wow, that actually exists.
I mean, like, the theory is that it was an aired episode that one of the writers did before, and then there's like all the kids that watched that episode ended up like going and like killing themselves, and it was like proper dark. Not actually true. I don't think it was just a complete creepypasta. There was ones I used to like as well. They were set at like a car boot sale, and it was like they found this. Like there was one. It was like about a cursed Pokemon Fire Red. And they found the Pokemon cartridge at a car boot sale, and the funniest part is like they boot it up, and there's all these like it's normal up until a point, and then there's stuff gets creepier, and then there's like some of the Pokemon characters are like dead or bleeding, and they say like creepy dialogue, and they're like, oh fuck. They try and dispose of it, and then like the next day they come back and it's like right on their desk, and they're like, oh, like this like Satan and 666 Pokemon. But yeah, like it's all stuff that's just been for pure love of creativity, and some of them are really shit and some of them are really good. But I think Kane Parsons has picked a really cool one here and built on the lore himself. So it's just an interesting direction of that the film industry, more specifically the horror industry, is going to go into. I think we discussed before how a lot of indie and DIY and alternative films tend to be horror movies because those are the easiest to make money with and get people into cinemas. So unfortunately, it doesn't seem like a trend that's going to be kicking up
that's been a trend
soon.
for 100 years.
Yeah,
it's not really going to change anytime soon.
But
pornography has always been a big one.
There you go.
Brian De Palma very bridged that gap between like pornography and horror a lot. I think Hitchcock did it as well a bit, like using your own fetishes and in horror films and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, what's the other guy?
Ty West?
No, the body horror guy.
Cronenberg.
Yeah,
Crash is a good example again. Yeah.
Yeah, well, young directors will need to pick up your camera.
Well, I mean, on that note, do we want to drop? It'll be this Friday, won't it?
This Friday upcoming. So yeah, this will be released on the Wednesday in 2 days. Got our very own directorial. Well, it's not your debut. It's probably the third or fourth music video that you've directed.
Yeah, probably 3 or 4 now. Yeah,
for one of my songs, "She Is the Sun."
Yeah,
with special help and thanks to Charlie Perrin.
Shout out Charlie Perrin.
Made the puppets and did the animation.
Yeah, check it out this Friday. It's a good little one.
Yeah, it'll be on my account, Paul A. Buchanan.
We're going to put it on the Old Band Media YouTube.
Well, I was going to put it on my
that's
YouTube.
fine. It'll be on Paul A. Buchanan YouTube.com.
But we can reshare that on the socials and stuff.
Cool, great. I have got to get off, I'm afraid.
All right. Well,
so, but it's been a pleasure, Paul.
Good,
and I think it's going to be Jackass, or no, it's going to be Neutral Milk Hotel next week.
Well, yeah, depends. We're going to do a Jackass ep, and we're going to do another guest episode. So
yeah, stay tuned for that. Thanks very much, guys. Bye.
All right. See you next week.